Now, if you couldn't already tell, in today's video, we're gonna be combining the World Shaper Precon with the Graveyard Overdrive Precon. Now, the reason why this may work is because both decks care about the graveyard. So by the end of this video, we're looking to create a deck that sacrifices our own permanence so that we can use that value to overpower our opponents. But before we combine both of these commander decks, we have to give a huge thanks to MYTHATOM.com for sponsoring this video. This stitched playmat was sent to me from MYTHATOM.com and gives all of us the opportunity to relive the epic boss fight that I know all of you remember playing as children between Nico Bolas and Cloud in Final Fantasy VII, something that definitely happened in the past and I know all of you remember. I also got sent this Colossus Hammer keychain that I'm going to be giving away to anyone that types a comment in the comments below. Now keep in mind everybody, this Colossus Hammer is made of very good quality. This thing is actually very heavy. This is me weighing myself without the Colossus Hammer. This is me weighing myself with the Colossus Hammer. And if you buy this, just remember never to bring this on the plane because everybody knows that when you equip the Colossus Hammer, you lose flying. So if you're looking for affordable Magic the Gathering accessories that are gonna wow your friends, head over to MYTHATOM.com and pick up deck boxes just like this that, mind you, does fit a 100 card double sleeve deck alongside tokens as well. But just remember to use the promo code Garden State so that you get 10% off your first purchase. The deck that we're going to be using as our base is the World Slayer Precon. So we're going to add cards to this deck, which means that what we're going to do first is look through the Graveyard Overdrive Precon and find cards that care about the graveyard and put them off to the side. I want this deck to be a pure graveyard sacrifice deck. So we're adding cards like Azoni, Thousand Eyed, and Zeotora the Incinerator to give us those sacrifice abilities. And then we're gonna add cards like Eternal Witness and Kolaghan's Command so we can get creatures that we sacrifice out of our graveyard back to our hands so that we can put them back onto the battlefield. By doing this, we should be able to generate some nice rinse and repeat plays that we can use to generate a ton of value over our opponents. So now that we've removed all the cards from the Graveyard Overdrive deck that we're going to want to play in our new deck, what we're going to do is look through the World Shaper Precon and remove any cards that don't synergize with what our focus is going to be. I really want this deck to focus on sacrificing anything, not just sacrificing lands. So we're taking some cards out of the deck that really care about lands being in the graveyard, like Centaur Vinecrasher, Avendo Bushraiser, and the Baloth Prime. By removing these cards, it lets us play cards that want to sacrifice permanence or sacrifice just creatures in general, which is more of the style and the way I want this deck to play and feel. I really underestimated how many times lands would enter the battlefield and be sacrificed to search for other lands, so picking the commander for this deck was pretty difficult. I tried Corum the Undertaker, Korvold, Hearthhole, but I ended up playing Sarl because Sarl allows us to play lands from our graveyard so that when those lands do enter the battlefield and are automatically sacrificed, we get to buff a creature with 2+1/+1 counters. And it may not seem like a lot, but when we're playing a deck that allows us to play multiple lands per turn, we're adding 4, 6, 8+1/+1 counters onto one creature, creating very powerful, unstoppable creatures when we give them trample. Now, a great combo that I noticed while playtesting was between Morog and Selvala, because Morog allows us to create multiple combat steps, and Selvala creates mana equal to the greatest power that we control. So during our main phase, we could tap Selvala for mana, cast whatever we want to cast, and then go to combat, and then attack with Morog. During the second main phase, we can have a land enter the battlefield, and because inside this deck there are many cards that allow us to put lands into play, we could play a land, untap our creatures during combat, go into the next main phase, and then tap Selvala for mana, put a land into play, which gives us an extra combat, and we keep doing this over and over again, getting multiple combats, and at the same time, every single time Morog attacks, each of our creatures are going to get bigger. So the amount of mana that we're generating with Selvala grows and grows and grows, and it turns into a turn where we're just we just flood the board with a million things, And if we don't remove somebody with Morag, we just end up creating a really powerful board state. Another great combo was with Jury and Zeotora, because Jury enters the battlefield. Act like Zeotora is not here. Jury enters the battlefield and gets buffed every time we sack a permanent, which inside this deck is a lot of permanents. So every single time we sack a permanent, this is going to get a +1/+1 counter. And then Zarl also sees those, so Jury will gain 2 +1/+1 counters. So every single time we sack a permanent, Jury essentially will gain 3 +1/+1 counters. And that's not even if Mazarek is in play, which would then put another +1/+1 counter on Jury. But let's just act like Mazarek is not here, because what ends up happening is Jury ends up gaining, let's say, 20 +1/+1 counters, because inside this deck we sacrifice a lot of things. Let's say 20 +1/+1 counters over here. Now, if we have Zeotora in play, we could then add an end step, sack a creature we control, which would be Jury. We could sack the Jury, and then we can deal damage equal to its power to any target, which will be somebody's life total. And then whenever Jury dies, we get to deal damage equal to its power to any target. Essentially, we get to double the amount of damage that we deal with Jury. And because we added cards like Eternal Witness and Kolaghan's Command, we can get the Jury back to our hand, put Jury back into play, continue to sacrifice things, and then delete people from the game. So what we're going to do right now is play test this commander deck just to see how it goes. I'm going to cut this so that you all know this is completely random, and we're going to see what we get. So we're going to draw into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. A ton of different cards. Did we get yeah, we do have a couple of green land over here. So we're going to go ahead and play this. We're going to imagine somebody fast this turn. So we're going to draw into a Cabaret Courtyard, which is another land that's going to enter and sacrifice itself, which is the reason why I mentioned that playing a land for turn, and then we would just go ahead and pass the turn over here because it is a tap land. We'll draw into that Kolaghan's Command, which is great because it's going to help us to get things out of our graveyard that we want to use again. We'll go ahead and put this mountain into play, and then we're going to cast this Farseek and searching for a swamp. We'll put that onto the battlefield tapped, and then go ahead and just pass the turn here. Really just ramping and hoping that we draw into some powerful creatures. But I know one creature, we're going to play that Mayhem Devil as quickly as we possibly can. So I think we're going to go ahead, tap 3 mana. We'll play that Mayhem Devil, have that enter the battlefield so that whenever we sacrifice a permanent, we get to deal 1 damage to any target, which feels great. So what we're going to do right now is let's play this Cabaret Courtyard. We'll have this enter, well, how about we have the Myriad Landscape enter tap this turn, and then we'll go ahead and just pass the turn after that, drawing into a Blasphemous Act, which is a card that we could use. And unfortunately here, this is something that you're going to notice while playing this commander deck, is that we kind of don't, a lot of lands inside this deck enter tapped, and that's just something that we have to deal with, and it's not necessarily too much of a problem. So what we'll do right now is we'll play the Cabaret Courtyard. This will automatically sacrifice, so we're going to deal 1 damage to an opponent. And then once they take that damage, we're going to search a library for a forest or plains. Let's get that forest, have that enter tapped. And then we're going to go ahead and cast the Harrow, which is going to force us to sacrifice a land and have 2 lands enter the battlefield untapped, which is great. So we're going to go ahead and do this. We'll play the Harrow, sacrifice the forest that we have over here. And then we're going to search the library for 2 basic lands cards and put them onto the battlefield, pinging somebody else because we did sacrifice another card. Let's go ahead and get a mountain so that we have it, and let's just go ahead and put this forest onto the battlefield. So in 1 turn, we've had a lot of different landfall triggers, which would have been cool if we had a landfall card in play, but we live with what we got. You know, now we have the 3 lands, the 3 mana. And what I can do is sacrifice these 2, telling you guys how much we sacrifice lands inside this deck. We sacrifice this Myriad Landscape to search for 2 of the same type of land. So let's go swamp and swamp and have both of those enter the battlefield. And then I think for 1 turn, that's pretty good. We ramped really hard during this turn. We'll go ahead and pass after this, dealing damage to the Mayhem Devil at the same time, which was nice.
And now that we have pretty much all the mana that we need, you know, looking at our hand right now, we draw into a Skyshroud Claim, which gets us more lands. But I want you to notice we have no lands inside of our hand, right? But what's cool is that because we have our commander Sarl, which is why I said we're gonna pick Sarl inside this deck. We tap 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. Let's actually keep an extra forest over here if we can. And we will go ahead and cast our commander Sarl, have Sarl enter the battlefield. And now technically, because of the his ability to play lands from our graveyard, we can choose to go ahead and play a land, which we're going to choose the Cabaret Courtyard. We'll have this enter. This is automatically going to get sacrificed, triggering the Mayhem Devil. We deal damage to somebody, and then triggering Sarl. So we're going to put 2 +1/+1 counters onto the Mayhem Devil, making him a 5/5. So now we're going to go ahead and get another land. We're going to put that onto the battlefield tapped. If I could find a basic land, here's a forest that'll enter play. And this is basically how the deck functions. You know, for 2 precons that we combine together, I'm actually surprised at how well this deck works with 2 mana left open, seeing what we can cast. I think we just hold that mana. I don't think that we can really do anything with it. So we'll go ahead and pass the turn. And you're noticing the rhythm of the deck. So we could play this card over here, Aftermath Analyst, to get more cards into play. How about we go 1, 2, 3, 4. We play the Death Reap Ritual. So whenever a creature dies at the end of our turn, we get to draw a card. So what we'll do here is go 1, 2. We will put the Aftermath Analyst into play, forcing us to mill 3 cards. So 1, Morag, 2, Burnished Heart, and 3, that forest. How about we put that forest into play? Let's just imagine that we tapped our mana like this for purposes. We'll have mana like that, and then we'll put this forest into play. We'll tap 3 mana, and then we'll cast the Kolaghan's Command. So as we cast this, we get to return a creature from a graveyard to our hand, and then we get to have that happen. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna have Morag return back to our hand, and then we'll just force somebody to discard a card because that's what we do. We could go to combat and attack with Mayhem Devil, whatever. It's not really that important. We didn't have a creature die, so we're not going to draw a card, so we'll just go ahead and pass. But now, because we have Morag inside of our hand, we will untap and draw into the Brawn, which would be cool to get into the graveyard if we could. But I think what we're going to do right now is just go like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I think I need that red. And another red for Morag. 3, 4, 5, 6 mana, I think. Yeah, 6. We'll get Morag into play, right? So we'll have Morag into the battlefield, and now because Morag is in the game, whenever we play a land, we get to go to an additional combat phase. So what would technically happen here is we would go to combat. Let's say we attack somebody with Mayhem Devil and Sarl, right? We could then go to our next main phase, and we could then play a land from our graveyard because we have Sarl in play, wishing that this was a different land that we got to choose to sacrifice when we wanted to. But we could have the courtyard enter the... Well, do we want to do that? I think in this situation, to maximize it, we put this forest into play, which will give us an extra combat step. And then we could then go to combat, untap our creatures, attack again. And then we could go to our next main phase, tap 4. We could cast the Skyshroud Claim from our hand, which will put 2 lands into play. 1, and these enter untapped actually. So it'll be 1 and then 2, which is going to trigger Morag again. So we're going to gain extra combat step. Then we're going to go ahead and go to combat, and you guys are seeing basically what ends up happening over here. Unfortunate that we didn't have what we would really like to have in that situation is a card like a Terramorphic Expanse or an Evolving Wilds like this, so that as we have that enter the battlefield with Sorrel, we keep it here and then go to the next combat and then get out of that combat to the next main, sack this, put a land into play, which triggered Mirage again. And then if we have a card on the battlefield, like I'm sure we'll find one really soon, like a Gitrog monster, as first of all, we'd be drawing cards when those lands are sacrificed, which is amazing. But I think most importantly, this reads we get to play an additional land on each of our turns. There are a lot of cards that do that, and that basically would just let us put the Evolving Wilds into play so that we get to do this again and then get another combat step. And from the ability to do that between the two precons, I'm telling you, it actually feels great. And I would actually recommend buying these two precons and combining them this way, because you get a very powerful commander deck. Not to mention, if Selvala was in play, we'd be generating a ton of mana. And at the same time, once you're done combining these decks, you have enough cards left over to just build a completely other one, maybe 2 or 3 commander decks out of those decks. So I think if you can find the World Shaper Precon and the Graveyard Overdrive Precon for a cheap price, you can build and have a ton of fun between both of those decks. So if you like this video, remember to like this video. I have a lot of fun combining these precons, and I think other people do. If you plan on doing this combination, let me know in the comments section below. And I have to give a huge shout out to all of the OGs, the channel members. Without you guys, none of these videos would be possible. So if you are already not a channel member, it's just 99 cents to become a member of the channel, and it helps me create content and get cards so I can do things like this. A huge shout out to MYTHATOM.com for sponsoring this video and allowing us to relive this amazing boss battle that I know we all remember. And as always, when I end these videos, I always say the same thing. Always remember, everybody, eat healthy, okay? Work out every single day. Most importantly, everybody has to remember to believe in themselves, okay? Peace out, people.